there, Griff Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome. Thanks for joining me today. In today's video, we are continuing in our series of major sounding blues licks. And today we have something from my personal favorite, or one of my personal favorites, which is Box 4. Let's check out the patterns involved. To start with, we are in the key of A. I've got my pinky on the A at the 12th fret of the 5th string. So that means that going down from there, I've got my 6, my 5, and my 3 going up, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5. Now, of course, when I add in the blue note, it's going to shift things around a little bit because now I need to somehow grab that flatted third. So I have the flatted third on the 4th string between the 2 and the 3. It's common to play it on the 2nd string, root 2, flat 3, and then 3 up there. But it's also very common to just take that 3 and go down a half step. But don't mess up if you're not looking. Now, of course, again, as all minor licks do, that means we're also going to need the minor sound. For that, we're going to have box 3. Now, of course, we talked about box 3 in our last lick, but we looked at it from a major perspective, where the root would have been here. The root is now here, again, at the 5th fret of the 12th fret of the 5th string. So root, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 7th, root, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th. We can go down to the flat 7 to the 5 and the 4. Of course, we can add in the blue notes. Right, I'll say nothing has changed as far as the, scale degrees and all that kind of stuff. We still have a root, a 2, a 3, a 5, and a 6 from the major blues sound, plus the flatted third is the blue note. We have the root, the flat 3, the 4, the 5, and the flat 7 is the minor pentatonic, adding in the flat 5 for the blue note. So again, nothing has changed. We're just in a different place. You may or may not be that comfortable with box 4. Most people aren't, in my experience, but I love box 4. Primarily because of the fact that the root is here at the 5th string. I end up using box 4, I'll say right facing, which to me is towards the body of the guitar. That gives me an A minor sound. If I use it going left facing towards the headstock, I get a left facing sound. So this is a pattern that I use a lot. I see it used a lot. You will likely use it a lot when you get the hang of it. So let's jump into today's lick. 3, 4, 1. Okay, very kind of Albert King, Stevie Ray Vaughan-ish, really more Albert King. And I'm doing a couple of things that are a little bit funky, but they just lend themselves really well to being up here. So again, I'm putting my first finger on that A at the 10th fret of the 2nd string. This is a position that you're going to find yourself in a lot. Now, if you're familiar with the house pattern, you're going to be comfortable with this. If you're not familiar with that pattern, it's sometimes called the B.B. King box. And I don't want to get too sidetracked on that, but that is also here, which is, again, sort of a whole other can of worms with something that I call the core position. But again, we're going to try to keep things straightforward. So I'm going to hit that A twice. 1 and I'm doing that. It's just very Albert King. I'm going to bend that 2 up to the major third. Again, we do that a lot. We've seen it before. We bend that up to the major third, and then I'm going to take the 4 from the minor sound, and I'm going to bend it up a whole step. Now, I'm doing that with my first finger. I'm using 10 gauge strings on a Les Paul. Les Paul's slightly shorter scale. If you're using 10 gauge strings on a Strat, that's probably going to be a struggle. But most people, I think, will probably use 9s on a Strat, and it still might be a struggle at first. But once you develop that callus, you're never going to want to. You're going to want to do this. You're going to love this sound. So again, I have that first finger bend. You could do it with a hammer on, I suppose, but it just doesn't sound as cool. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down the 10th fret there, which is the 4, and I'm thinking box 3 now, the minor sound. I'm going to pull off from the flat at 7 to the 5th, but then I'm going to jump down to the 6. So again, now I'm kind of starting to think back into box 4. And I'm going to end up on the root, hold that for a second, and then I'm going to end it with a whole step bend. Now, one thing that's kind of cool, we talked a little bit about how some of these licks you can minorize, right? For example, over the turnaround where you've got a lot of chords going by quickly, sometimes it's very difficult to make all those adjustments, 1 beat here, 2 beats here. That can be a challenge. So if you've got a lick that's either fully minor blues scale, it's obviously going to fit just fine. So there's plenty of licks I've got out there with just minor blues licks. But you can take a lick like this and we can very easily, I'll say, minorize it by just making the bend a half step. So it goes to the minor third. Because the 2 is not a problem and the 6 is not a problem. So we're okay with those notes. Right, it'll work. If not so good. Flat 7, major 7, not so good. Right? So that's a simple way to adjust this lick to make it sound good. So let me walk you through it, or to make it sound minor. A 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. That's probably going to be the hardest part for everybody. 3 and a. Play that really slowly because of that pull off. Make sure you get that sounding nice and even. 3 and a. Don't go 3 and be all weird and wonky with it. 3 and 4 and one more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and one more time. 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I just jumped in a little bit early on that last note because it sounds cool to do that. Let me do it exactly as written. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's kind of cool, like I said, to jump in on the and instead of the Again, it's just one of the many possible adjustments you could make. Now this lick, like all of them, will move around, right? So if I, into my looper, I put a little A7 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and. Great, no problem. I have a couple of choices when I get to the D, okay? Let's put it in the looper. The first thing I can do is, of course, move it. 1 and. Sorry. 4, 1. If I was, or I could minorize it. Right? Again, keeping those bends kind of shallow. Either way will work, and depending on what you're doing, you'll choose one or the other, and that's totally okay. If I was doing, again, something like the turnaround. Nah, that's the wrong. So I can do that shallow bend. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that totally works. Okay, so I can do that. I could put it in E. Right, I can put it anywhere. The point here, make sure you learn it, make sure you get it memorized, make sure you could put it anywhere. You should not care, just like always. right? It doesn't matter where it goes. The fingers move the same. Pay attention to things like whether you're working with the root or the second or the third or the fifth. A lot of people call those intervals. They're technically not intervals. They're scale degrees. Intervals are distances between two notes. So I say that it's kind of a thing I don't care for it. It's the wrong terminology. You can't say what's an interval in a scale. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you can, if you have two notes and you have a distance, then you have an interval. But in our case, we're really talking about what are called scale degrees. So I won't get off on that tangent, but just keep that in mind. A lot of people will call them intervals, and they're technically not intervals. They're scale degrees. But keep in mind, whether you're playing a fifth or a fourth or a third or a second or a flatted seventh or whatever, the more you can keep that in your mind, your hand will just go where it needs to go, and you have a lot more command of what you're playing by being more aware. Oh, hey, this is the four chord coming up. I need to get to a flatted third. If you're aware of where that is, you're going to get there, and it's going to happen nicely and easily for you, which is what we always want. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up for today. Again, this is the fourth lick out of 5 that we're going to be doing. Hopefully you saw the video yesterday. I took the first 3, put them into a solo, kind of cool. I wish I'd had this lick when I made that solo, but I will have it when I make another solo here in a couple of days. So get into it, dig this lick, share it with friends. If you've got guitar playing friends that you think would dig it, by all means, share it with them. Again, I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.